Yes, yes, yes. Welcome back to another edition of Go Along Live. I am Barry Long II, your host. We'll be joined by Mo Murphy here shortly. We are live on CoachellaValley.com. We are also live on today'scalifornia.com. We are also live on today'scanada.com. We are all over Twitter. We had a crazy sports weekend, great football weekend, both college and NFL. We're gonna break down some of those games this past weekend, especially with Mo Murphy because he called a game. I call him Nostradamus a little bit because he called one this past week. So we're gonna add him in right now without any further ado. What's going on, Mo Murphy?
Yo, what's going on, bro? How you living?
I'm doing great. I like the hat. I like the Miami hat.
Hey, you feel it? You feel it?
So your hat's better than my hat today. Hey, so how was your weekend? What'd you do this weekend, man?
What I do every weekend: drink and watch football. I watch the UFC fight.
Okay.
Drink and watch.
Absolutely, man. We also had a boxing match that happened. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. Canelo ended up winning that one. But I wanted to talk first. Let's just jump right into this college football. We had a couple of crazy games this weekend. One game that stood out to me was Tennessee and Kentucky. Kentucky's been playing well this year. But University of Tennessee, they're Jekyll and Hyde. We don't know which Tennessee ball team we're going to get from week to week, but they won 45-42. They outlasted Kentucky, I should say. But the one thing that stood out for me in this game was the time of possession. Now, you look at the stats, and we know time of possession generally means that whoever dominated in time of possession was able to do whatever they want. They dictated how the football game went. They got first down at the first down. They kept the ball, basically, and they kept their defense on the sideline. So usually who wins time of possession is if it's outrageous. Typically, that team won the game. Well, this game was an anomaly because the University of Kentucky had 46 minutes and 8 seconds. 46 out of 60 minutes they had the ball. Tennessee only had the ball 13 minutes and 52 seconds, and they ended up winning by 3, which tells you that, there was a couple of defensive touchdowns, a couple of short fields. But, that game was crazy to me. But the main game that really stood out to me, and I ask you every week, Mo, who is on upset alert? What game should we be watching? Because you're a college football guy, and you said it. Undefeated Michigan State needs to be on upset alert with Purdue, and you didn't want to go as far as say it would happen, but you did let us know it would happen. And when I'm watching the game, as the game is playing out, Michigan State, they were down most of the entire game, and they gave up 536 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns to O'Connell, who played phenomenal. But I'm watching the game play out, and I'm like, man, Mo is looking better and better right now. And now, go ahead and beat your chest, man. You told us about this game.
I mean, I didn't call. I just said upset alert. Like I told you, I wouldn't be. I said Friday. I wouldn't be surprised if Purdue wins this game. It's just set up that way. This is, if I'm an Ohio State fan, so if I know anything, I know Big Ten football. When it comes to college football, I know all college football, but when it comes to Big Ten, it's the same story you see. Michigan State just came off a big-time win against Michigan. Purdue's that upset team this year. Usually each conference has a team who isn't going to play for a championship, probably won't make that New Year's Six Bowl, but they play to ruin everybody's season. And essentially that's kind of Purdue. And Ohio State has Purdue this week. They played spoiler to Iowa. They played spoiler to Michigan State. So they have a chance to kind of go, 3 in a row as far as spoiling Iowa, Michigan State, and Ohio State and shaking up the Big Ten. So I'm not putting Ohio State on upset alert, though. I won't do that.
You are the Ohio State fan.
You won't hear that from me. But Michigan State played amazing, bro. But, Purdue, like I said, Purdue they're that team this year. They're just the upset alert team this year. And they ultimately, they kind of made Michigan State look average, but that's what happens. It's tough to come off a big win and not step down off your high horse and carry the momentum into the next week. Mm-hmm. You start living in the moment for big-time games like that, and it ends up hurting you because I'm sure they didn't practice as hard this week. I'm sure they didn't prepare as much. I'm sure the players weren't as focused, whether the coaches and players will say it or not. They weren't as focused. They're big dogs. They were number 3 in the first college football playoff ranking. They're the big dogs in the Big Ten. At that point in time, the Big Ten runs through Michigan State, essentially, as far as getting to the playoff spot. You're going to have to knock Michigan State off, and Purdue was actually able to do that. So that's kind of the reason why I have Michigan State on upset alert. This is the story of the Big Ten every
Yeah, and it's been the story in college football the entire season. And these guys they're college guys, they're young, and it's hard week to week to keep that same momentum. That same momentum and that same energy as you had, like when they were preparing for Michigan all week. They were hyped, they were ready. And for Purdue, it was a letdown, and we've seen that a lot from a lot of teams this year. Wake Forest, in particular, was a team that was undefeated, and we were talking last week about how it's not really fair that Wake Forest doesn't have the same opportunities to be ranked as high as other teams that are undefeated, but it's because of the strength of schedule, because of the conference that they're in. But they had a letdown this week, and they gave up 58 points to UNC, scored 55 themselves, but they ended up losing by 3. What was your thoughts about Wake Forest?
That game was BS, and here's why I say this, because you're almost getting me set up for a rant. But if that was Clemson in the same predicament as Wake Forest, first off, they'd be ranked number 2 or 3. 4 probably at the worst. But undefeated, they would have been number 2. They would have been ahead of Bama. They would have been ahead of everybody. Because they're in the ACC, but their name is Clemson, their brand holds weight in the college football world. They would have been number 2. And had they lost like that to North Carolina, they'd only drop to like 5 or 6 at the worst case scenario. But this is Wake Forest. It's because Wake Forest is not the Clemson Tigers, are not the team of South Carolina. They're Wake freaking Forest. They're in the ACC. The ACC's terrible. Now that they lost, we don't want to see Wake Forest all year. But this is the same conference that Clemson has been running through and getting all the street credit in the world for. But Wake Forest don't get that same benefit of the doubt. I guarantee you, had Clemson been undefeated in this same game and lost 58-55, it took their first loss. At worst, they'd be 5 or 6, only because the one-loss teams behind them won this week. So they might drop them right behind with a chance to be a one-loss ACC champ and jump right in. Wake Forest is absolutely done from the playoffs. They won't make playoffs. Wild stuff I have that. Their best case scenarios, they finish as a one-loss ACC champ, and they'll play in the New Year's Six Bowl. But their playoff chances are done because their name isn't Clemson Tigers.
And I was telling people this weekend, man, while watching boxing, I'm like, man, college football is kind of like boxing, because once you lose once, you're out. You don't have a chance to be a contender for the title. So yeah, man, it's sad for a team like that, but you got teams like Alabama that that still have an opportunity after a loss. They almost lost to LSU this past week, but they were able to sneak one out. But it's looking better and better for Georgia, and Georgia's playing one of those trap games this week. They better be looking out against Tennessee, because Tennessee would love nothing more to do than to play spoiler for any team. But now let's get into the NFL, man. Because we had some crazy games yesterday. We had some close games. We had some games where we thought that, like the Denver and Cowboys game, where it was like 30-0 for a while. I'm sitting there looking like, man, and thank God the Cowboys were able to clean it up a little bit and make it look like it wasn't such a bad game. But it was a terrible loss for the Denver for the Cowboys. They lost 30-16, and the defense looked okay at times, but they gave up some big plays. But the offense really looked stagnant at times. What were your thoughts on the Cowboys?
All right, so Barry, it's bad that I'm doing this because I am a Cowboys fan, right? so it's tough, but let's think about it here. I'm just going to bring this point up. We played horrible, okay? We got our butts whooped by a team.
Horribly.
But we'll get into these games, and we're not going to be like the rest of national media. Cowboys lose, that's all we have to talk about, but we will talk about it. Isn't it funny that the Buffalo Bills lost to the Jaguars, which we'll get into? The Cincinnati Bengals look like frauds. They're on a 2-game losing streak. Got blown out by the Browns with all the turmoil. They should have had the advantage. We'll get into that in a little bit. The Rams got manhandled by Derrick Henry-less Titans. We'll get into that in a second. But all that in Dallas for the first time in 6 weeks. This was week number 7. They took a loss, and that's the biggest story in the football world. Ain't that crazy?
That's America's team for you. That's America's team.
Dallas is 6-2, though. They only dropped their second game. They got Atlanta and trash behind Kansas City coming up the next 2 weeks. But because we can finally celebrate a Cowboys loss, we're letting the Buffalo Bills slide.
We're not letting the Bills slide today. There's no way in hell we letting the Bills slide, because the Bills, they have some explaining to do. They got a lot of explaining to do on the offensive side of that ball, losing to Jacksonville 9-6. But yeah, the Cowboys, I mean, they did look stagnant, and they looked like they hadn't woken up. and they're not used to those early games, those 10 o'clock West because it's West Coast time, 10 o'clock for me. But what time did the NFL start for you on Sundays? 12?
12. I'm on Central Time.
Yeah. So yeah, there was an early game for them. I thought maybe that they were just sleepy. They just hadn't woken up yet. Maybe they wake up during halftime. But they didn't run the ball as well as they have in the past weeks. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that the Cowboys would be just fine. They got that division by the balls. I mean, there's nobody else going to take that division besides Dallas. Even though New York has looked good the last couple of weeks. They're able to defeat the Las Vegas Raiders, who didn't have Henry Ruggs, obviously. But Hunter Renfrow played well, but they were trying to highlight him in that game as like a number one receiver. And they went out and after that game, because their offense looked stagnant at times as well. After that game, they went out and they got themselves a real slot receiver and a guy that can really take the top off the ball, even though he's a little bit old. I think they'll have a big role with this team in Deshaun Jackson. So Deshaun Jackson is now a Las Vegas Raider, and you can only hope that team does that it gels with him and that he has an opportunity to be a star, because he was on the Rams wearing number 1 like he did in college, and playing at home in his home state, hometown, home city, and it just didn't work out. But I think that because of the wide receivers that the Rams already had, he didn't have an opportunity that much, but now he's going to have an opportunity with the Vegas Raiders, and it should be fun to watch him, catch passes from Derek Carr. So let's talk about Buffalo, because Buffalo was only able to get 6 points. They were only able to measle out 6 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Buffalo was being considered by a lot of people as a top team in the AFC going into this week, and some people still consider them to be a top team. What do you think about the Buffalo Bills? Are they frauds or are they not? Because I think they're frauds.
I mean,
for the time being.
So here's what I got to say to them losing to Jacksonville anyway.
The Kawhi laugh?
Yeah, but I don't think Buffalo's frauds. Like, they dropped the game. A lot of teams dropped the ball. Like, let's just be honest. Last night's game, the Tennessee Titans and the Rams, I think the Titans showed how good they really are. But everybody assumed no Derrick Henry. The Rams were going to, run through the Tennessee Titans. And really, the Titans won it on the defensive side of the ball, which was kind of their biggest weakness. The Bills lost due to lack of performance on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense played well. They held Jacksonville points. Let's just be honest. Like, holding a team to 9 points, like, do you blame your defense when you lose those games? No, you don't.
Even though it's the Jags, yeah.
They scored 6. They scored 6. So it's like, Josh Allen just looked off. Yesterday was really just an off day. So I have a theory. I'm blaming it on clocks went back an hour. Off a little bit. A lot of guys started mentally. They were like, it's a 1 o'clock game, but you know what? It feels like it's 12 or whatever. So they were.
But look. I can understand that theory if it was springtime, okay? Because you losing out. So you're at the club. It's 1 o'clock, and all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock. And you're like, man, the club closed early. But in the fall, you get an extra hour of sleep. You get an extra hour at the club.
So they just, I know it went back, but in their mind, like, they were just geared up. They were living life an hour ahead.
Yeah, I feel you.
Ahead of schedule. They were already thinking about the third quarter instead of thinking about kickoff, because they were an hour ahead, envisioning beating Jacksonville by 50. Mm-hmm. So they were already ready to get to those bars Sunday evening to Sunday before they dip. But Buffalo's still one of the best teams in the AFC. Let's just be real. I mean, Titans might be the best team in the AFC based on what they did. We got to give them their credit. The defense stepped up. Ryan Tannehill still didn't impress me, but he did what he needed to do ultimately to win the game. So I'm not going to call the Bills frauds, because at worst, they're the third best team at the very worst right now in the AFC.
And I call them frauds because I'm just mad at them, and I'm a Ravens fan. The Buffalo Bills are still going to be there when the dust settles, I believe, as well. Every team has a bad day. It's any given Sunday, any team can win. That's why they call that movie Any Given Sunday. So it really was, a terrible game for the Buffalo Bills, but they could bounce back at any time, and they definitely have the team, and they're well coached. They'll be just fine. But yeah, the Tennessee Titans. Let's talk about them. Now they lose Derrick Henry. A lot of people think it's for the season, But when you really go and you read the report and you go and really, do some digging, you find out that he's going to be out for maybe a maximum of 10 weeks. So that gives them, 1 or 2 weeks into the playoffs. So if they were able to get a bye, which they won't this year, but if they were able to win like 1 or 2 playoff games, they might end up getting Derrick Henry back late in the playoffs for that late, deep playoff run. Now, they went out and got Adrian Peterson. He only had 21 yards yesterday, but he did score a touchdown. But their defense is what I was very impressed with by Tennessee. The defense put a lot of pressure on Matt Stafford and that offense. There was a couple of bonehead plays, especially the first interception that Matt Stafford threw when he was getting ready to be tackled for a safety in the end zone and ended up just trying to throw it away, but throw it right to a Tennessee defender, and they ended up scoring on the next play. So, they lost 28-16, the Rams, to the Titans, but the Titans impressed me with the defensive performance that they put on the field, because earlier in this season, their defense was looking like they were looking like trash. And for some reason, now they're starting to click on defense, and the Tennessee Titans are looking more and more like a threat. And I don't know if they can sustain winning games with McNichols and Adrian Peterson. And by the way, this is let's just get the meme of the day out of the way. I saw this and I had to put it. This is Adrian Peterson showing up to Titans practice. Oh, that's great. But no, Adrian Peterson is still one of the greatest of all time running backs, especially of our generation. But he ain't no damn Derrick Henry. And McNichols, he sat behind Derrick Henry and they're in the same running back room, but he ain't no damn Derrick Henry. And as long as Tannehill can get a little bit of production out of the running back position, then he can hit him with that play action. And he still has one of the best wide receiver tandems in the league right now with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. I think that if they can transition from less of a running team to more of a passing team in this Derrick Henry absence, I think the Tennessee Titans need to be considered a Super Bowl contender because they have one of the easiest divisions to win, and they have one of the best rosters in football. What do you think?
I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like, I agree with you. The Titans are the top team in the AFC right now. First off, them in Baltimore, you can hash it out. I guess they're both like that victory that the Titans had and then how the Ravens got it. It's kind of been the story is like Derrick Henry goes down. Titans had to get it out of the mud and they got it. Another comeback win that Lamar Jackson had to figure out and he was able to do it. Over 400 yards of offense individually with Lamar Jackson. Them the top two teams in the AFC. They got the best records. And it looks like Tennessee's going to be able to figure out how to do it. Their defense stepped up big and stopped a very high-powered offense. I don't expect their defense to play like that, but I also expect Tannehill to get more and more comfortable by the week without handing the ball off and depending on Derrick Henry to bail him out. Or if they can't get the passing game going and the run game is the bread and butter, which happens in games also, that he's going to be able to put more effect. You've seen he had a rushing touchdown. Still threw an interception. Who cares? He threw a passing touchdown. And at the end of the day, when you dominate the way you dominated on the defensive side of the ball, you get the win. You can look past the mistakes. You can fix the mistakes. Easier to fix mistakes in a win than it is to focus on mistakes in a loss. So I think the Titans will be fine. Derrick Henry will probably be back before the regular season ends. They said max is 10 weeks, but they're more looking at that 6 to 8 range, which will put him back the last week or two of the regular season. Which at that point, you'd use those last 2 games to kind of get his legs back going and get ready for the playoffs. But I mean, with the AFC being so weak, also, I think Tennessee's sitting in a good spot right now with where they're at, able to, come off and with momentum of beating the Rams, no Derrick Henry. Like now you believe you're at a weaker part of your schedule right now. I think things are fairly easy for Tennessee, at least over the next couple of weeks. Like if you were going to miss Derrick Henry over these next few weeks, some of these games are when you would like to go without Derrick Henry, get Tannehill going to play like playoff quarterback football. So I think the Titans will benefit from no Derrick Henry, honestly.
And that's a really good point because so you got to find different ways to win in the playoffs a lot of times, and you're right. If they can, get the passing game going, then yeah. And Derrick Henry, if he comes back before the end of the season, oh my goodness, look out because that's what you need when it gets cold and it gets late in the season. And defensive players are worn down, not just throughout the course of the game, but throughout the course of a season. And that cold weather, you're gonna need to bring that running game on the road with you, or at home, and that it's gonna be really sustainable when you have Derrick Henry back there. Now let's talk about another team in the AFC. that it's kind of, people were talking about they were looking like one of the best teams, and now they've lost 2 straight. That's Cincinnati Bengals. They lost to the Cleveland Browns 41-16, and there was a lot of stuff that people were saying about Odell Beckham Jr. leaving, and some people thought the team would get better. As a matter of fact, a lot of people thought the team would be better without Odell Beckham and without that tension and that aura in the locker room. And they looked phenomenal. And we could say, hey, this team is going to be better moving forward without Odell Beckham. But conventional wisdom tells us that it's not. And at the end of the day, when you look at, a team that like Cleveland, a team like Denver, that both lost stars this week to different teams, then they all came out and they performed at a high level. And maybe it's that little bit of that momentum, like, hey, we gotta really galvanize the troops because we lost one of our best players. So I think that this is kind of maybe a momentum win for Cleveland. But it's just kind of a reality check for Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, they are who we thought they were. like Dennis said back in the day. What was his last name? Dennis Green. Yep. Yeah, they are who we thought they were. And I think Cincinnati moving forward is not going to win this division. And Baltimore looks pretty good right now, sitting at the top of that division. What do you think about the Bengals?
Yeah, they're trash. Stop buying the best. We buy early and then pay attention. Watch the games, and let's not deem guys when they only had one quality win. If you think about it, yes, they blew out your Ravens. You got to give them credit.
41-17.
Start putting them up on the map and they're for real. But then they got reality checked last week.
Yes,
they got reality checked last week against the Jets. Cincinnati gonna be Cincinnati when they got you thinking they're great. They let Mike White look like quarterback of the year. They let Michael Carter,
shout out to White Mike,
best running back in the draft. They let the Jets offense, they let Robert Saleh look like a genius as a head coach in a terrible season. Let's just be honest, that was inexcusable. And I know the Jets have beat the Bengals and the Titans, but they beat the Titans with what? No Julio or AJ Brown, and I think their tight end was out on top of that. Mm-hmm. It was Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and whoever else they decided to pick from the practice squad for them to throw the ball. Maybe we expected Derrick Henry to run for 1,000 yards, but I think so did against the Jets, but so did everybody else, and so did the Jets. That's why they put 8 in the box and made Ryan Tannehill to his 3rd and 4th string weapons try and beat him, and he just couldn't do it. That was a lot to ask for him. But like I said, Bengals are trash.
Bengals are trash.
And
the Baltimore Ravens are not. And, even though the Baltimore Ravens lost 41-17 to the Bengals a couple of weeks ago, the Baltimore Ravens had an off game, like we say. A lot of these top teams can have an off game. And the AFC is completely wide open right now. So a team like Baltimore does look pretty right now, sitting at the top. And after being down double digits in 4 games, the Ravens are now 3-1 in those games. So the Ravens have shown the ability to come back. And that was what one of the biggest criticisms of Lamar Jackson was. And one of the biggest things that people like to highlight is, okay, yeah, they look good when they got the lead and they're running the ball at a high level and they're just handing it off and they're doing the RPO because that Lamar Jackson looks good with a lead. But he can't come back. He can't throw the ball and bring your team back from being down a couple touchdowns. And he's done that 3 times this season, and he did it yesterday. After being down 17-3, the Ravens were able to crawl their way back, get the lead, and then Minnesota ties it up at the end. They go to overtime. This game goes down to the end of overtime, and Justin Tucker is able to kick a field goal that wins the game 34-31. And Lamar Jackson, he won this week with a style in which he normally plays for the most part of his career, and that was running the ball a little bit more than passing. That he's been doing the last few weeks. The last few wins, he's put up. We've seen him put up a 400 passing yard game, 300 passing yard game, and a couple of 300 passing yard games. But yesterday he ran for 120 yards, the most he's ran all season so far. And we got Devontae Freeman going. He had 79 yards as well. The Ravens look like they have a lot to say about the AFC and the way it shapes out. What do you think? You think the Ravens? Can you see them being there when the dust settles in the AFC Championship, possibly?
I think so because the AFC sucks. They have a tough road. Let's just be honest. I'm sorry, the AFC trash this year. It's not a tough road to get there. They might have to play Cleveland. Cleveland could get the rolling. It's very possible. They got rid of their distraction, however you want to look at it. Maybe they get to rolling. They start getting back healthy. Denzel Ward looked like the lockdown corner that he is yesterday, taking 100-yard pick six to the crib. It's not going to be like the easiest, but the AFC's not that great because Cincinnati's not good. Tennessee, you might have to play one of Tennessee or who? Buffalo. That might be who you have to. You might only have to play one. Yeah. So that might be your toughest game where you might have some cakewalks. Maybe Cincinnati sneaks in there. Maybe a Pittsburgh sneaks in there. To where you're like, I guess the Raiders could be a tough game also. It'd be a rematch though, but still, it's not the hardest to get through the AFC. So yeah, I could see Lamar Jackson. I mean, playing with a chip on his shoulder, he's playing like an MVP candidate. He's the top 3 MVP candidate right now. Quietly, nobody's talking about it, but he is playing amazing. Rashard Bateman's getting his legs up under him at receiver ever since coming back off IR. He's getting more targets. He's catching more balls. He's putting up more yards by the week. So watch out for that. He's kind of the receiver they needed him to be. Hollywood Brown had an amazing game yesterday. 9 catches for 116 yards. Mark Andrews, find the empty spots in the zone, sit there and let Lamar Jackson get you the ball. Perfect recipe to march the ball down the field. And Lamar was effective with his legs and his arm. He could do it all. Like, let's just be honest. He could do it all. And, you know, I wonder if OBJ was watching that game like, damn, maybe I'm in the buzz.
And as a Ravens fan, this is Go Long Live. By the way, I am Barry Long II. He is Mo Murphy, and we are live on CoachellaValley.com. Today's California. Today's Canada. We're all over Twitter. But yeah, I was watching that game, and I was watching Rashad Bateman, and I'm like, man, he's starting to come along. And yeah, you're right. Hollywood Brown did have an amazing game, and he made some great catches, and they weren't all on deep balls. They were on some comeback routes, and he's starting to settle in. And I'm watching the game like, man, we really don't need Odell Beckham, because we don't want to really mess up the chemistry that we have in the locker room right now. And we also don't really want to hinder a Rashad Bateman in his growth or Hollywood Brown in his production right now. So, you know, that's another one. Odell Beckham Jr. going to any team in the NFL right now. It's possible. But I'm looking at it like I don't really want him in Baltimore. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. But let's jump in to another game that was a big headline game, and that was going to be Kansas City versus Green Bay. Of course, we know Aaron Rodgers is out with COVID, and he's not eligible to return until Saturday. He might return Saturday if he can, test negative. So he'll be back for Sunday's game. But they had Jordan Love, and a lot of people were, talking. This is going to be the future of Green Bay or not. But we know that Aaron Rodgers definitely does not want to come back to Green Bay next year. So they're going to have to figure something out. But, Matt LaFleur tried his best to put Jordan Love in positions to be successful. They ended up losing 13-7 to Kansas City, which was a sloppy, ugly win for Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. But yeah, there was times, and Troy Aikman did a great job of highlighting a lot of the missed opportunities that Jordan Love had. And granted, it is his first NFL start. I believe that his mom and his sister were there. They showed them they were at the very top of Arrowhead Stadium, like literally the last seat, the nosebleed section for real. But yeah, it was a tough environment to play your very first NFL home game, and he looked like it was his first NFL game. NFL away game, and he looked like it was his first NFL game. He played, not well, but is he the future moving forward next year? Do you think we've seen enough of Jordan Love? Or do you think that the jury is definitely still out on him and they might need to look elsewhere?
I don't know about looking elsewhere per se. He's had enough time to develop behind Aaron Rodgers, but the best reps is game time reps, and he really hasn't had that. He hasn't had a need to. So to say that coming in, all the pressure was on him now because it was only a replacement. Like, it's not like Aaron Rodgers is out for the season. The hopes of Green Bay falls on Jordan Love. Like, okay, we didn't love what I saw, but I love what I saw from the defense. I think Jordan Love could play a little bit better. I'm sure he'd play better if he continued, but he's never going to be able to get no real rhythm, which is why, like, you can't kill Jordan Love and say, yeah, let's just look elsewhere, because the Packers, first off, ain't going to be bad enough to get a top quarterback in a draft, one. And two, like, that's why people say the first 4 weeks of the season, anything could happen, especially in the first 4 weeks, because everybody's starting to get their rhythm. How do you do that? By getting game time reps, by playing in games. quarterbacks really start get rolling after the first 4 weeks. So it's not fair to judge Jordan Love. They had to come in on last minute notice because Aaron Rodgers tested positive to prepare for the game. And essentially, like, yeah, he played bad, but what would happen if he plays next week and he plays absolutely amazing? Like,
everybody forget about it.
Yeah, it was a prime matchup because Kansas City's defense is bad, but Kansas City defense showed up, but so did the Packers. Like, that was a defensive battle that was just absolutely horrible. It was a testament on how much the Chiefs suck. It's on that. So, because they still, no Jordan Love. You should have been getting the ball a lot. I mean, no Aaron Rodgers. You were, getting Jordan Love off the field and the Packers offense off the field. You still weren't creating nothing. Shouldn't have been a defensive battle. It should have at least been a one-sided defensive battle. So, but I mean, I'm not upset with Jordan Love. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. Yeah, he absolutely will. And but I'm not sure if he's the answer long term moving forward for Green Bay. We'll see. But they must have saw something in him, and now that he's got that bad game out of his way, I hope that he does get another opportunity to show what he can do, whether it's in garbage time of a blowout win, or whether it's this week and Aaron Rodgers isn't able to return until next week. But I feel bad for the guy because there is a lot of pressure on him right now, and those are big shoes to fill. And Aaron Rodgers is not necessarily looking like the most helpful guy on the sidelines. Like they showed a couple clips of when Jordan Love is talking to Aaron Rodgers during timeouts or on the sideline after a game or after a series, and Aaron Rodgers just looks so dismissive of him, and deservingly so, maybe. Because that's what happened to Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre. Brett Favre was not the nicest guy. He was not trying to train Aaron Rodgers on how to become his replacement. He literally was like, dude, figure it out on your own. And Aaron Rodgers had to. And some could argue that there were years taken off of Aaron Rodgers' career, his actual playing time career, because he had to sit behind Brett Favre and his indecisive ass for so many years. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Jordan Love does become their quarterback moving forward for the next few years, but we'll see. Real quick, we have a few minutes left. We'll talk a couple more games, and then we got to get out of here and talk about this Monday Night Football game. We are Go Long Live. I am Barry Long II. This is Mo Murphy. Now, Arizona and San Francisco. No Kyler Murray, but Colt McCoy played phenomenal. 22 or 26 for 249 yards. They won 31-17. And Cliff Kingsbury just looks like he's pulling the right strings right now. And Arizona 8-1. Are they the best team in the NFC in your opinion?
No. I can't give it to them yet. No. I don't know if they're better than the Packers, bro. Like, record says they are, but like the Packers win this game and they have the same record without Aaron Rodgers. Like, let's just be like the Packers win that game.
The Packers did beat the Cardinals, but that was a crazy ending.
And I don't always do like the head-to-head matchup, but under the circumstance, the Packers were depleted at that time, but they did have Aaron Rodgers, but they didn't have their weapons. And guys were coming off of IR. Devontae Adams didn't play, so it was tough, and he still pulled out the W. But it's like, based on record, the Cardinals are the best team in the NFC. But as far as what I've seen, like, I still probably have to roll with the Packers. I mean, the Packers are 7-1 right now. Had Aaron Rodgers play yesterday, that's what it comes down to. And I think the Packers probably are the team to beat. I mean, don't sleep on the Bucs. I don't think, the Bucs kind of folded one against the Saints. It happens. There are other losses to the Rams. The Rams lost to the Cardinals. Like, it's a revolving door of who lost to who, but I can't definitively say that I'm rocking with the Cardinals to be the best team just because, like I said, I think the Packers only have one loss if Aaron Rodgers, was able to play yesterday.
Absolutely. And, Aaron Rodgers, we haven't seen the matchup between him and Pat Mahomes that we wanted to see the last few seasons. We've had opportunities. It just hasn't happened yet. It could happen in the Super Bowl if Kansas City can figure it out. But Kansas City right now is looking like hot garbage on offense, and I think it'd be a perfect place for Odell Beckham to go, given who they haven't had step up in the wide receiver position with Mecole Hardman. He hasn't become that number 2 to Tyreek Hill's number 1. Brian Pringle, who I thought was going to step up, has not stepped up. Odell Beckham Jr. would look really good in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform. And last night, if they didn't see that, even in a win over Jordan Love, that was so ugly. If they didn't see that they need another weapon on that offensive side of the ball, somebody that can really step up and help Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, then last night highlighted it for sure. All right, tonight, real quick, we got Chicago and Pittsburgh. Who do you have and why? this should be an ugly game too.
Yeah, if you're tired, go to bed. I won't miss much here. I'm going Chicago though. I'm gonna rock with Chicago
because you're a Justin Fields fan. Is that why?
Yeah, I'm staying loyal to my guy. I'm rocking with Justin Fields. He's been getting better each week. Not that means he's great, but he started off, at the very bottom, so therefore it's only up from there. But I think they're starting to realize how to use him. I think they're starting to see where he's effective at. And they're figuring out the right way to use him, at least as a rookie, get him acclimated to the game. You'll work on the real development after this season, heading into next season. I'm gonna go with the Chicago Bears, and I'm gonna say 20-17. It gets ugly.
Wow. I'm gonna say it's gonna be uglier than that. I'm gonna say 14-12. I'm going Chicago. I think Pittsburgh
14-12. Take a nap. Go to bed early because everybody's trying to watch that. At least gave 20-17.
Yeah, you at least put up a couple touchdowns on
quarter. Yeah, we might at least see a score every quarter or something.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, hopefully it does go like that. But I think these are two defenses that are starting to find themselves, and it's gonna be an ugly game for both offenses. But the Bears had a little COVID outbreak going on with the coaches and staff and everybody. Now everybody's back in the building. So yeah, I look at them to be able to pull out a close victory, even on the road. But we'll see. But yeah, all right. So Mo Murphy, let them know where they can find you at.
You can find me at Upper Flames Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter, Instagram. You can also listen to me every Monday on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel at 11 a.m. Eastern. Starting with me is Off the Ball Mondays, where, straight basketball content for 5 straight hours. So make sure you go check that out. And make sure you go to offtheballnetwork.com and check out all the great articles and all the great work all my guys do over there. And for all your sports needs and entertainment.
For sure. And you can find me on Twitter at Barry Long. At Radio Barry Long, and on IG at Barry Long _2, Facebook at Barry Long _II. And there is the meme of the day. One more time, Adrian Peterson showed up the Titans practice. All right, y'all enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. We will be back tomorrow, as we are every Monday through Friday at 12:30 on CoachellaValley.com. For Mo Murphy, I am Barry Long. Stay focused, stay motivated, stay inspired, and remember, y'all are capable of doing anything. Peace.